A cerulean dawn cracked open the morning sky, and a young, lissom girl named Amelia prepared for breakfast with her father. Their house, nestled amidst the verdant hills, overlooked a sprawling and vastly forested acreage. As they sat at the time-worn wooden table relishing their repast, Amelia's father cast a wary glance towards the ominous, shadowy woods that bordered their homestead. "Amelia, my dear," he began, his voice tinged with trepidation, "heed my words, and eschew the allure of those accursed woods. They house secrets best left undisturbed. You should hold only profound contempt for their existence, for I oft dream of the day when those trees shall be razed, their sinister whispers silenced forevermore." Amelia's curiosity, however, was piqued by her father's admonition. Her youthful exuberance compelled her to seek adventure and the thrill of the unknown. With a determined nod, she promised to obey, but the burgeoning desire to explore the foreboding woods remained, festering within her. Bidding her father farewell, she ventured forth into the sun-drenched meadow, her laughter carried by the gentle zephyrs that caressed the swaying grasses. The serenity of her surroundings beguiled her, luring her ever closer to the tree line which demarcated the boundary between safety and the forbidden. As the shadow of the woods loomed over her, Amelia hesitated, recalling her father's warning. But the lure of the unknown proved irresistible, and she rationalized her disobedience with the promise of a fleeting foray into the shrouded depths. Amelia ventured deep into the heart of the forest, and as she strolled, a pervasive sense of unease descended upon her. The once melodious songs of the birds were supplanted by hushed rustles and barely audible whispers. The vibrant foliage, now obscured by the canopy overhead, gave way to a muted palette of umbral hues. Amelia's heart thrummed within her chest as she sensed a presence, both malevolent and benign in equal measure. Out of the murky shadows, a majestic creature emerged, its form a breathtaking amalgamation of the natural and the ethereal, the leviathan body of an elk, draped in pristine white fur, and a face so eerily human that Amelia's breath caught in her throat. Goradah, the spirit of the forest, had revealed itself. Its mellifluous voice wove a spell around the young girl.
"Come, Amelia,"
Goradah intoned as he drifted past the girl, his stride long and his countenance serene.
"You possess an ineffable quality that distinguishes you from others, a beacon that calls to the spirits that reside within these woods. Your destiny is intertwined with the secrets that lie at the heart of this realm."
The spirit's cryptic words resonated within Amelia, awakening a newfound sense of purpose. With trepidation and wonder, she followed the enigmatic Goradah, her small feet tracing the path of the forest spirit as they delved deeper into the labyrinthine woods. The landscape shifted around them, the trees growing taller, more ancient, their gnarled roots twisting and writhing beneath the loamy earth. Amelia felt a burgeoning connection to the forest, her senses heightened, and her pulse echoed in time with the very heartbeat of the woods. The veil that had once shrouded her understanding began to lift, revealing a realm of magic and mystery that had been concealed from her gaze. Goradah continued forward, leading Amelia to the base of an immense oak, its elder visage etched with the wisdom of ages long past. A gaping aperture beckoned to them, and Amelia hesitated for a moment before gathering her courage and following the forest spirit into the darkness. The subterranean passageway, at first narrow and confining, soon expanded, revealing a network of tunnels formed by the intricate weave of the tree's roots. The air was cool and damp, the earthy scent of the soil surrounding them as they navigated the bending paths. Gradually they entered a vast, cavernous clearing, so expansive that Amelia could not discern the end above her. Countless trees spiraled upwards, their trunks reaching for the unseen sky, their roots snaking through the damp ground, a testament to the interconnectedness of the forest and its denizens. At the heart of the clearing lay a crystalline pool, its surface as still and smooth as glass. Goradah led Amelia to the water's edge, the tranquility of the pool a stark contrast to the imposing grandeur of the surrounding woodland.
"Peer into the waters, Amelia,"
the spirit instructed, its voice a gentle susurration.
"In the depths of this ancient mirror you shall find the truths you seek.
Tentatively, Amelia gazed into the placid pool, her reflection wavering slightly as the faintest of ripples danced across the surface. As she stared deeper, her own visage began to shimmer and distort, giving way to images and visions transcending the corporeal. She saw herself, older and more self-assured, her hands glowing with a radiant energy that coursed through the very roots of the forest. Scenes of healing and rejuvenation unfolded before her, the once desolate woods now teeming with life and vitality. Then, in an instant, the serene images within the pool shifted abruptly. The waters turned as they revealed a panorama of devastation and despair. Amelia faltered as she beheld the forest aflame, its once lush foliage reduced to smoldering ash. The relentless advance of humanity, wielding destruction and desecration, ultimately culminating in the brutal demise of Goradah. The forest spirit's voice quavered with sorrow and determination as it addressed the distraught girl.
This must not come to pass, Amelia. I shall employ any means necessary to preserve the sanctity of this sacred realm.
A sense of foreboding enveloped Amelia as Goradah's gaze grew resolute, the spirit's countenance darkening with grim intent. The pool's surface now reflected only Amelia's visage, her eyes wide with terror as she realized the import of the spirit's words. With a swift, deliberate motion, Goradah extended a hoof and tapped Amelia's forehead. A searing pain exploded within her, her body convulsing as her reflection in the pool underwent a grotesque metamorphosis. Limbs twisted and contorted, her lithe frame shrinking as her image was transfigured into that of a small, delicate deer. The transformation complete, Amelia stood trembling, her newfound form a testament to the lengths to which Goradah would go to protect the forest. Her humanity stripped away, she found herself bound to the spirit and the woods in a manner she could not have foreseen. Goradah regarded the young deer with a mixture of compassion and resolve.
Fear not, Amelia.
It intoned.
For you are now an instrument of preservation, a guardian of the forest. Together we shall defy fate and avert the destruction that looms before us.
Amelia surveyed the clearing. She noticed that they were no longer alone. From the shadowy embrace of the tree line, deer, birds, bears, and other creatures of the forest, their eyes, alight with a shared purpose, were all fixed intently upon Amelia. A silent bond seemed to unite them, a collective understanding that transcended species. Goradah addressed the gathered throng in an arcane tongue, his voice resonant and commanding. The assembled animals listened raptly, their unwavered gazes betraying the gravity of the situation. With a sudden concerted motion, the creatures lifted their heads skyward, their voices uniting in a harrowing wail that reverberated through the cavernous chamber. The sound was haunting, a chilling lament that echoed the desperation of the imperiled forest. Amelia, now a creature of instinct, felt an irresistible urge welling up within her, as if compelled by an unseen force. She raised her head and added her voice to the chorus, the eerie symphony filling the air with a sense of foreboding and sorrow. As the wails of the animals reached a fever pitch, an aura of darkness began to pervade the clearing. The once peaceful surroundings warped and twisted as if the very fabric of reality was being rent asunder by the horrific chorus. Shadows crept from the corners of the cavern, tendrils of darkness that breathed and pulsed with malevolent intent. The animals' cries grew more guttural and discordant, a cacophony of suffering that clawed at Amelia's very soul. The air grew thick with the stench of decay, the cloying odor of physical presence that threatened to suffocate all within its grasp. The cavern seemed to shrink around them, the once stately trees now gnarled and twisted, their branches reaching out like skeletal fingers to ensnare the tormented creatures below. The pool, once a mirror of clarity and revelation, now seethed and roiled, its waters blackened and tainted by the overwhelming despair that filled the chamber. As Amelia wailed alongside her newfound brethren, she felt a cold, creeping dread encroach her psyche. The terror that had gripped her threatened to consume her very being, her instincts driving her to flee from the nightmare that had swallowed them all. Yet, she remained rooted to the spot, her voice a vital component of the monstrous symphony that was summoning forth the darkness. The wails crescendoed into a deafening roar, the shadows now swirling in a maddening vortex that threatened to engulf them all. The very ground beneath their feet tremored as if the earth itself quaked in fear. Then, in an instant, the cacophony ceased. The creatures, their voices spent, stood motionless amidst the darkness, their breaths shallow and labored. As the silence settled over them like a shroud, Amelia realized that this terrifying communion had forged an unbreakable bond between them, a pact sealed in blood and shadows. The eerie silence persisted, and the animals gradually turned away from the pool, retreating into the darkness of the forest. The gleam of their eyes vanished one by one, leaving Amelia alone and trembling in her new form. Desperation clawed at her as she sought to plead with Goradah, her mind frantic with the desire to be restored to her human form. But as she opened her mouth to speak, she found that her voice had been taken from her, her words replaced with the pitiful bleats of a deer. Goradah regarded her with a blend of amusement and pity, the forest spirit's laughter a cold, dissonant sound that bounced off the surrounding trees.
"It is too late for you, young one,"
it declared, its once mellifluous voice now tainted with an air of menace.
"You are far better off as one of us, severed from the accursed legacy of humanity."
With that final pronouncement, Goradah turned away from the transformed girl, its ethereal form dissolving into the shadows as it abandoned her to her new existence. Amelia stood alone in the clearing, her eyes welling with tears that she could no longer shed. As the reality of her situation settled upon her, she felt a wave of grief and loss consume her, the weight of her altered destiny a heavy burden upon her frail shoulders. Forlorn, she cast one last glance at the pool, its waters now still and inscrutable. Then, with a resigned sigh, she turned and followed the other creatures into the depths of the forest. Years slipped by, the passage of time marked by the changing seasons and the perpetual cycle of life and death within the forest. Amelia, now fully adapted to her existence as a deer, could only observe the world from a distance, the memories of her past life a bittersweet reminder of what she had lost. She watched her father, a once joyful man, grow consumed by grief and bitterness. His hatred for the forest increased with each passing day, driven by the pain of losing his beloved daughter. With relentless determination, he felled tree after tree on his property, the once lush landscape now a scarred testament to his anguish. Amelia often ventured to the edge of the woods, her heart aching as she observed her father's fruitless search for her. She longed to reach out to him, to somehow communicate her presence, but her voice was lost, her pleas silenced by her transformed body. Once, as Amelia lingered near the border of the forest, she found herself face to face with her father, their eyes locked in a brief, wrenching moment. But the recognition she longed for never came. To him, she was just another deer, a symbol of the forest that had stolen his child from him. His face contorted with anger and resentment, and he hurled a rock at Amelia, the projectile striking her with a searing pain that went far beyond the physical. As she returned to the safety of the woods, her heart shattered. She realized that the bond they once shared had been irrevocably severed. Despite the passage of years and the relentless march of time, Amelia would never forget her father's face that day, his eyes filled with pain and bitterness, their love for one another now a haunting memory that could never be reclaimed. She remained ever watchful of her father's land, eventually witnessing the arrival of bulldozers and a growing sense of dread. The monstrous machines, like behemoths of iron and steel, sat poised to ravage the once sacred forest. It soon became clear that her father, in his desperation to find his daughter, or at least uncover her remains, had commissioned a deforestation service to obliterate the surrounding wood encompassed by his acreage. As the engines roared to life, belching smoke and heralding destruction, from within the depths of the forest, Amelia heard the distant call of Goradah, a clarion summons that resonated within her very being. Compelled to follow the sound, she made her way to the mystical clearing where her life had been forever altered. There she found Goradah already addressing a congregation of animals, their faces a mix of fear and determination. The forest spirit's voice rang out, powerful and commanding.
The time has come, my children. We must ready ourselves for battle. The fate of the forest hangs in the balance. This war will decide the course of our destiny, and we shall fight with every ounce of our strength to protect our home.
A murmur of agreement rippled through the gathered creatures, their eyes alight with the fire of resistance. Amelia, now significantly more committed to her role as a guardian of the forest, felt the weight of her responsibility settle upon her shoulders. Despite her love for her father, she understood that the survival of her newfound kin and the land that they called home was indeed important. Amelia remained hidden as the animals of the forest began their assault on the bulldozers, equipment, and human workers. The conflict erupted with ferocious intensity, bears and large elk charging headlong into the fray, their powerful bodies colliding with machinery and sending some humans scrambling for safety. A few workers, armed with sidearms, fought back against the onslaught, their shots echoing through the once peaceful woods. The battle raged around Amelia, a maelstrom of violence and chaos that she observed from her concealed vantage point. Her mind spun as she witnessed the destruction unfolding before her. A bear, roaring in defiance, hurled itself against the bulldozer, its massive form denting the machine's armor. Birds, their beaks and talons sharp as knives, swooped down upon the humans, their wings a blur of speed and fury. Amidst the conflict, smaller creatures scurried to and fro, sabotaging equipment and evading the panicked attempts of the crew to regain control of the situation. From the depths of the battlefield, Amelia's gaze was drawn to a figure that stood out amidst the chaos. Her father, his face contorted with rage, charged at the animals, a large shotgun in his hands, his anger fueled by the belief that the forest had stolen his daughter from him. Instinctively, Amelia bolted from her hiding place, desperation propelling her towards her father. Her heart screamed out for him to stop, but her wordless cries were lost amidst the roar of battle. As she reached him, her eyes filled with pleading, he turned to face her. For a moment, time seemed to slow, their gazes locked in a final, tragic embrace. But recognition never came. To her father, Amelia was just another attacking animal, a threat to be eliminated. The shotgun roared, its deadly payload hurtling towards her. The impact was swift and brutal, a searing pain that tore through her body. As Amelia crumpled to the ground, her vision fading, her final thoughts were of her father and the love they had once shared. She had tried to protect him and the forest she had come to call home. But in the end, her fate was sealed by the very man she sought to save. And with a final, shuddering breath, Amelia's spirit slipped away.